Good evening. We're bringing you the special broadcast from the Kartavya Path, as Rajpath will be henceforth known, right in front of the India Gate, where a statue of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, as you can see behind me, that canopy that's lit up, that's a maroon curtain that's been put in place over there. That curtain will be inaugurated by the Prime Minister in just a short while from now, right here. It's a very, very important day because this is happening right in the heart of New Delhi. It is literally the path that connects Rashtrapati Bhavan on one end to the India Gate on the other end. This entire road that was earlier known as the King's Way, as a tribute to King George V when he came to New Delhi for the Darbar move from Calcutta to New Delhi as the seat of the British imperial power. It at that time was known as the King's Way. Post 1947 it was renamed as the Rajpath. That name now is being changed to Kartavya Path. Very, very significant. One of the many things that is in fact being done today, and the entire idea was to rid of colonial symbols, because as the government says that Rajpath is a literal translation of King's Way, and they want to remove in fact all the lexicon and vocabulary away from the rulers towards the people, and reminding everyone of their kartavya or their duties. And that's why in fact this is such an important and such a significant measure that is being taken. Of course, we've seen earlier how Racecourse Road, where the Prime Minister's residence is situated, was renamed as Lok Kalyan Marg. The inauguration of this statue too is being seen as a long pending demand that has now been accepted by this government. Of course, it was announced much earlier, but the statue, 28 feet tall in black granite, is going to be inaugurated in a short while from now. We expect in fact over here, even as the dignitaries arrive, you can see Home Minister Amit Shah in fact entering this venue of ministers and top dignitaries who are present over here. In a short while from now, the Prime Minister also expected to arrive at this particular location just outside the Sea Hexagon, as it's known, the road, the busy road that surrounds the entire India Gate lawns. Of course, it's not just about all of this. The entire central vista has been redesigned. There are in fact going to be facilities where vendors will be able to sell their food, where there would be adequate walkways, canals, rebuilt paths, underways and underpasses for pedestrians to minimize their contact with traffic. All of these are part of the rededicated and redeveloped Central Vista project. So this is something that in fact we're going to be seeing formally inaugurated in a few moments from now. The Prime Minister and his convoy expected to arrive here in a short while from now, and that's why it's being seen as a very, very significant development. Of course, it's not without its share of controversies and naysayers. The opposition has been quick to criticize the need to rename Rajpath as Kartavya Path, saying that this was anyway, changed from King's Way. And in fact, of course, the entire controversy surrounding Netaji, where we've seen for the past over 4.5 decades that entire canopy being empty, but the statue of King George was removed from it. So in many ways, the government says that this is significant because they believe the colonial rule and symbols of it are being removed one by one. It is symbols of India that are being replaced over here in the heart of the national capital, and that's why they're calling this a very, very significant measure. Let's now take this across to our guest joining us live. Without much delay, we have with us Hindol Sengupta, historian and author. Raghavendra Singh is with us, former Secretary of the Government of India and Senior Fellow of the IVF. Chandrachud Ghosh is author of Netaji's biography, Bose, the untold story of an inconvenient nationalist conundrum, as well as Subhas Chandra Bose's life after death, and Ashutosh, political analyst. Let me start with Hindol Sengupta. Hindol Sengupta, multiple things that are happening at the moment. It's not any one measure. In your view, what's the most significant? Is it the Bose statue? Is it the renaming of the Kartavya Path, or the rededication of the entire redeveloped Central Vista?
In my opinion, there's one more thing that rises above and encompasses all three elements that you just mentioned. It is this: India today, as the 5th largest economy in the world, needs to showcase that there is an emblematic vista that it has, which showcases New India. And this is the beginning of that showcase. This is a moment of transition for rising India. This is the one phase of India is ending and a new phase of rising India is emerging. That rising India does not seek to destroy or erase anything, but it seeks to preserve its heritage as museums, as the old parliament would be preserved, but alongside a new India high-tech, mobile, aesthetically sound, beautiful, not like the ugly Shastri Bhavans of the past. All of this will rise with new buildings, aesthetically and technology, ready for the future. This is a moment for rising India to showcase this in front of the world. That's what we are seeing today. We are seeing a moment of rising India.
Okay. All right, very significant. Ashutosh, quickly, I want you to comment on this. A moment for rising India, says Hindol Gupta. He's saying we're shedding a lot of the baggage of the past while recollecting, in fact, all of our... all right, we're not through with Ashutosh yet. Let me go across to Mr. Chanchur Ghosh. Chanchur Ghosh, your views. You, of course, played a very important role through your writings, through your activism. How glad are you to see this statue of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose finally being unveiled at the canopy right behind India Gate?
It's a very powerful symbol, and as everybody understands, a well-constructed, powerful symbol can have an impact equivalent to 100 books. And this actually is a game changer, a change in narrative. It's without saying much, without speaking much, the government of India, Prime Minister Modi has made an announcement to the whole world that we are making a turn, we are in a new turn, we are saying something new to the world about how we have reached here, who are the people who really matter, and the narrative that has been peddled for the last 7.5 decades. There is much above that, much more than that. That's how we got our freedom. It's not through a non-violent being a good man. It's not only about being a good man. It's about national interest. It's about self-interest. It's protecting the nation's security.
All right, we're cutting across live to pictures of the Prime Minister who's now arrived at this venue. You can see the convoy. If I can just show you the big screen, that's the visual of the Prime Minister's convoy arriving over here at the venue. You can see that vehicle on which the Prime Minister is aboard, and of course his security detail including him with, of course, his entire convoy. It is around.
All right, the Prime Minister's convoy has arrived, and it's but natural then that all the live broadcast units there have started to freeze given the Prime Minister's protocol and the jammer that accompany him. But the Prime Minister's office has tweeted a while ago, a historic program begins soon. The Prime Minister will inaugurate Kartavya Path and unveil the statue of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose at India Gate. So these are images, and if you just take a look at the overview, the entire area, the Central Vista Avenue is bathed in colors of our tricolour. You've got the War Memorial in the vicinity, you have India Gate, you have the entire Central Vista Avenue that is now being known as the Kartavya Path. For those not familiar, and anyone in India, most of you are already familiar, the Prime Minister just arriving, you're all familiar with the Rajpath. From our very childhood, we remember that entire stretch where the 26th January parade was like a morning ritual. We saw the parade rolling up Rajpath, but now that same parade on our Republic Day is going to be on Kartavya Path.
Meenakshi Lekhi.
जब प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस की प्रतिमा का अनावरण किया।
Flowers of gratitude and remembrance. One of the greatest freedom fighters India's ever had.
जब नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस की विशाल प्रतिमा स्थापित किए जाने की घोषणा की गई थी, तब इस घोषणा का स्वागत करते हुए नेताजी की बेटी अनिता बोस पाप ने कहा था कि नेताजी भारतीयों के दिलों में रहते थे, रहते हैं और आगे भी रहेंगे।
तो आपने देखा कर्तव्य पथ पर नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र।
All right, so that the Prime Minister has just unveiled a plaque at the foot of the statue of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Now remember, for years altogether, this was a place which many people didn't understand why it housed the statue of King George. In fact, let me take that question across to the guests who are live with us. Hindol, does it strike you as strange that for years the incongruity of a king who colonized us was there at the very heart of our national capital?
If I'm not mistaken, it is only in 1968 that the statue was finally removed. That is abysmal. 20 years after independence. I mean, no other colonial country, post-colonial country who's experienced colonialism, the pain of colonialism, would behave like this. It is appalling, it is truly shameful, and it fills me with great shame that this is true about our history. But we cannot but face this reality. This is the truth about our country. This entire colonial framework, including the statue that you're talking about, remained in our midst almost till 1970, really as an emblem of the fact that we had not been able to decolonize ourselves. The British may have left, but in our hearts and minds, we remained a subjugated people. It is truly, truly saddening, and I think the whole country should know the fact that you mentioned, and it should really make us shameful, even as the statue of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose today makes us very, very proud.
Mr. Raghavendra Singh, you know, it's only of late, after the change in government, that we've heard a lot about how there were icons in our history who've been denied their due. But the fact that we did not have Netaji's statue as prominently displayed in our national capital, perhaps as some other, leaders from our freedom struggle, do you think that it's a result of politics, or it's just that it was an omission in history?
Well, here's what I really think. What happened essentially was the transition from the British to India.
I'm sorry, that was from Mr. Raghavendra Singh.
Sorry, was that question to me?
That's Mr. Raghavendra Singh. Sorry, go on, sir.
My apologies.
Okay, sir. Netaji had a different approach to the national movement, which was quite different from the mainstream Congress leaders, the approach which they were following. In fact, around 1940s, he quite realized that if he had to follow his vision, actualize it, he would have to move out of India, because on one side there were the British who would not allow him to function in India, and time and again they would exile him from India. But when he was exiled, he would actually build up a lot of contacts which he used later. So he had to leave India and go to Germany and thereafter to Southeast Asia, because he was forced. But since he had the kind of contacts, he ended up reorganizing the INA and landed up till Imphal. And had he, within 24 hours, it was a question of touch and go. If within 24 hours the air reinforcements troops would not have arrived to the British garrison in Imphal, he would have actually entered India, and God knows what would have happened. You see, we ended up getting the power transferred to us. This is what the British say, that they transferred the power to us. Had Netaji been there, the power would have been, you know, the freedom would have been gained. The power would not have been transferred. That's the essential difference.
Mr. Chandrachud Ghosh, a lot of critics have also said that this is, you know, an exercise in futility, where you make these little token gestures in order to take away from the bigger issues of the present. How do you respond to such criticism?
I think it's pointless. It's quite senseless criticism because, firstly, as a symbol, as I said in the very beginning, this is a huge symbol. There are thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who flock to that area from all over the country, from all over the world. And it's making a statement. It's making a statement about the importance of this man. And those unfortunate ones who are not aware of Netaji's contribution or his true role or how he was the key person who got us our freedom, they will at least start asking questions, and more so the next generations. Kids, school kids, college kids who will be visiting that place, they will be at least asking themselves in their mind that what did this person do? Why is his statue here? They will start searching for the real answer. And I will just very briefly refer to your earlier question and just take that on. Forget putting Netaji's statue in a prominent place. Netaji's portrait in Parliament was put up 30 years after independence. The king's statue remained there for the next 2 decades, but the man who got us our freedom, his portrait was put in a parliament after 30 years. And obviously that was done. Netaji was marginalized. He was vilified as a fascist collaborator, which an exercise which still goes on. And you must remember the virulent opposition that came out when the Prime Minister first announced on 23rd January that the statue would be set up. That is to sustain that distorted narrative that we are good people. The British colonialists were good people. They quit India out of love, and it was non-violence that got us our freedom. That completely wipes out the role played by Netaji and the hundreds of thousands of people who completely chose a different path. They were eliminated from the mainstream narrative. By putting this statue here tonight, that narrative is being brought back into the mainstream. And that is a huge achievement.
Ironic then, Ashutosh, that it takes a Prime Minister at the helm of a Bharatiya Janata Party government to finally give his due to one of our freedom fight icons who was from the Indian National Congress.
He was thrown out of the Indian National Congress.
Let's understand this, that Subhas Chandra Bose belonged to the Congress party. Can anybody repeal that from the history? Can anybody delete that from the history? Nobody can delete it. So a person like Subhas Chandra Bose should be worshipped, should be idolized. There can be no doubt about it.
But that's the very point, Ashutosh ji, that he wasn't worshipped and idolized. Like Chandrachud Ghosh is saying, he was on the contrary ignored, minimized and marginalized.
That's a kind of history somebody would like to read. Let them read. Let them create an alternate history. That's welcome, because in historical understanding and the critical appraisal of the history, and those who played roles should be critically analyzed. There can be no doubt about it. But if anybody wants to say that India got independent just because of Subhas Chandra Bose, I think then you are denying the rights of the people who had really sacrificed. Today what is happening in this country, it is happening that just because you have to idolize Subhas Chandra Bose, and nobody can object to that, you are trying to do the similar thing which the Congress did. Now you are trying to tell to the whole world that Nehru has no place in this celebration. Nehru had no role to play in the India freedom struggle. That's the kind of things that the mistake this government is making. I think, can anybody do that? No. There was a time in history with Subhas Chandra Bose and Jawaharlal Nehru. They collaborated together, and it was they together in 1928 and 29. They radicalized the entire freedom movement. And it is they who first propagated that India should get the freedom. And in that thing, they forced virtually the Congress party to change their agenda. When they were talking about the dominion status,
Sir, you're absolutely right. But that is not the criticism today to say that Nehruji doesn't deserve a place in our history. It is to say that Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose also deserved to be on the same pedestal, but he was conspicuously kept missing all the time. And people who have spoken so far, that is why deliberately there is no politician here.
I do not agree with this understanding, because this is trying to distort history.
Is it?
Yes.
Let's ask Hindol and Gupta. Are you presenting an alternate history, a distorted history, a bigoted history?
Padmaja, let me complete.
Just let's get a quick response from Hindol and Gupta. I'll come back to you, sir. Because we're talking about an alternate history that's trying to be created. Let's speak to the historians. Hindol and Gupta.
What is the alternate history? Subhas Chandra Bose fought with Mahatma Gandhi and left the Congress. The Congress, that Subhas Chandra Bose had huge differences with the Congress party led by Mahatma Gandhi. His elder brother wrote one of the most virulent letters against the leadership of the Congress led by Mahatma Gandhi. Are all these things lies? I mean, you know what, is this alternative history? You know, people just say whatever they feel like on television. This is ridiculous. Subhas Chandra Bose went out and raised an entire army. His legacy was deliberately hidden for the simple reason that a quote-unquote a transfer of power had to be shown. And Subhash Chandra Bose is not the only one. Patel's legacy was barely taken into account. So was Ambedkar's legacy. All of this we have discussed numerous times. But Subhash Chandra Bose particularly, because he represented in a sense the other, plank of the Congress from Mahatma Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi's most powerful, interlocutor, the man who disagreed vehemently with Gandhi and the Gandhian approach. And therefore, clearly, the inheritors of the Congress party after independence kept away these figures away from, from a mass celebration because they wanted a different stream to come out. And this does, celebrating Subhash Chandra Bose in no way takes away from the fact that Mahatma Gandhi had a great contribution.
Exactly.
But we should see the national movement together. We didn't win our freedom only because of Gandhi, nor did we win our freedom only because of Bose. Both had their own unique contribution. Why can't we accept that? What's the problem?
What's the problem, Ashutosh ji?
No, I have no problem. I think Hindol Singh Gupta might have a problem. The problem is that he is talking about a virulent letter which was written by Subhash Chandra Bose's elder brother. He has forgotten that the elder brother was also part of a resolution which was passed for the independent sovereign Bengal. That is called United Bengal. With whom? So I think let's not get into the history. Is not black and white. History is always grey shades. One can interpret history the way they want. The only issue here is, I think if we all agree that the Congress made a mistake of marginalizing these people, if at all, then we should also realize that the same mistake is done by the same puppet. Today Jawaharlal Nehru has been totally marginalized. He is there in the severance celebration of the 75th year. He's missing from the posters in the Karnataka. He's missing from the ICHR's poster. If the Congress can be blamed for that, accused for that, then the similar mistake is made by them. And it is done by whom? The party who had no contribution to make for the freedom struggle. Let me insist this. The party had no contribution to make into the freedom struggle. Rather, they were the collaborator with the colonial forces. Shama Prasad Mukherjee has wrote a letter to the British governor in 1942 when he was a finance minister and the deputy prime minister. That quit movement, Quit India, but should not be allowed to succeed at any cost.
Okay, let Chandrachud Ghosh respond to that. Is Nehruji being denigrated by trying to prop up others as an alternative to him? Chandrachud Ghosh.
No, I think anybody who offers that kind of argument never had any problem all these years, only when Nehru and Gandhiji were put at the central pedestal. They never uttered a word against them. They never protested. They never recalled Netaji's. So anybody who is saying that Congress never marginalized Netaji, so my question is, why did it take a Janta government 30 years after independence to have Netaji's portrait in the Central Hall of the Parliament? And as far as Netaji belongs to Congress and he cannot be dissociated with Congress, let me tell you, Netaji was thrown out of Congress. Netaji's elder brother, Subhas Chandra Bose, was thrown out of Congress. And Netaji, as far as Gandhiism is concerned, his letter to his elder brother Sharat Bose, which clearly stated that Gandhism will land free India in a ditch. When Netaji is coming towards India with his INA, Jawaharlal Nehru standing up and saying that if Subhas dares to enter India, I will go and fight him with a sword. But you also have to keep in mind that it is the same Netaji and not the Gandhian followers who grabbed power, who gave Gandhiji the epithet father of the nation. His most virulent critic was the person to show him that honor. He had that magnanimity, he had that broadness of heart. It was not so with Gandhiji's followers. They never gave Subhas Bose that place that it deserved. And giving Subhas Bose the place today and acknowledging, nobody is saying that India got freedom because of Subhas Bose alone. No.
Yeah.
The point is
Absolutely.
that the British
Ashutosh wants to respond. Ashutosh wants to respond even as we are